Hello, everybody. This is Eric Smith with our April newsletter. And this month, I wanted to, some of you guys may already know this, but I thought it'd be a good idea for some of you that don't, is how to apply for Medicare Part B if you've already got Medicare Part A and you're coming off of employer coverage. So somebody has turned 65, they've continued to work, they've signed up for Part A, but they haven't signed up for Part B yet. What do they need to do that? And there's really two ways to do it. The first way is to do it online and go to ssa.gov. That's the URL that you go to, and then you go to Medicare and then sign up for Medicare. And then as you scroll down, you will see a button that says sign up for Part B only. You click there, and now you're signing up for Part B only because you have Part A. And then you start the application, and it's going to take you to something where you have to agree and understand. And then it takes you to a basic Adobe document. And in this Adobe document, you just scroll down and start completing it. So I can't really, oh, hang on, I got to click continue. I see. So you start completing it. So you put in your Medicare number. Do you wish to sign up for Part B? Yes. You put in all your demographic information, and then into the first mark section, your client would write some kind of sentence that says, "Hey, I need Medicare Part B to start X date." So something like, "I am leaving employer coverage on 4/30. um, I need Medicare to begin 5/1/26." Something to that, or Medicare Part B, um, something to that effect. Um, Medicare Part B to begin 5/1/2026. And then you're putting the employer's information here, like who did you work for? Because to avoid any late enrollment penalties, you've got to show that I've had credible coverage from an employer. So you put the employer's information down here. You put the applicant's name and their social security number. If this was a spouse of an employee, then the spouse would go here and the employee would go at the bottom. If it's the employee doing it, then their name goes here, and then their social goes in both places. But if it's their dependent or spouse, for example, then the spouse's name goes here, and then the employee's name who had the insurance goes into this spot. And then you fill out this part. Were you covered under group health plan? Yes. When were you covered? Has the coverage ended? These dates that are in this space, they need to show that the coverage began before the person turns 65. I see too often that somebody fills this out, looks at their insurance card, and they'll type in something like the coverage began January 2026, but the person's 68 years old. So when you submit that to Medicare or to Social Security, they're going to see, hey, this person has had group insurance since January of 26, but he's 68 years old. What was his insurance before that? So these coverage dates need to be prior to the person being 65. Um, and then when you do it online, you need to attach some kind of documentation that shows that you were covered under the employer's plan. And so to get the proper documentation, um, it needs to be a letter, a fax, or an email from your coverage provider. The written notification must be signed by the company's official. Needs to be some kind of income tax return that shows health insurance premium paid, a W-2 reflecting that, pay stubs, health insurance cards, just something that shows that they've had insurance. And then they attach it and submit it to Social Security. When you do it online here, this application goes typically to something called the Workload Support Unit, which is sometimes in Birmingham and sometimes in Tampa. Um, After you get done and you get to the very bottom, and you're all finished, you click done, and what happens is that the individual gets an email. It's like an Adobe email that basically says, confirm your signature. And so just because they've completed all of this and they have attached their documents and they've clicked here to sign, they've typed their signature, they have to go into the email that they received and click that just to make it official that, yes, it was me that submitted that. And yes, I'm confirming my identity because now I've clicked my signature, I've submitted it. And then I've also gone to check my email and click that Adobe email. That's how you apply for Part B online. The way we do it in our office most often is doing the physical form. So there's two forms that people need, and you typically get both of these just forms filled out, and then we fax them to the Social Security office on behalf of the client often. So the first form that you use is something called the CMS 40B. This is sort of like what I just showed you on how to apply online, where you're basically just filling out a CMS 40B request for enrollment into Medicare Part B. So you put in your Medicare number, first name, last name, address, phone number, email address, all of that kind of information. You fill this out, and then when do you want your coverage to start? Typically, you mark the second box because I want it to start the first day of the following month. And then I type in, I want it May, 2026, or whatever. Um, and then I sign it and date it. And you always have to remember there's two pages. This used to be a one-page document, and this was updated, I think, at the end of last year. So now it's a two-page document. So if you print this out, you want to make sure that you fax both pages. The page where you're filling everything out, and then this other page is where their signature goes. This is the request for Medicare Part B, um, which is really good. You can use this for a lot of different things, specifically for GEP, general election period for Medicare Part B during January 1 through March the 31st. This form works perfectly fine. But if I'm coming off of group insurance and I need to prove that I've got coverage, you also need an L564. The L564 is simply just a request for employment information. And when you look at this form, this is where the employer fills this out. So what we typically do is we will have our client complete a 40B for us, and then we'll tell them, hey, email this form to your HR department and fill it out, and then they can send it back to us, and we'll be happy to scan it and send it to Social Security to the local office on your behalf. But this is where applicant's name goes, employee's name, kind of like the other form, but now your employer needs to fill this section out, and then somebody from your company signs it and dates it. The main reason we like to do this is we don't have to worry about documentation to upload. By having the company fill this out, it's a company official. They're going to sign it and date it. They're going to put their title and their phone number. So if there's any questions about a date or what have you, we can call that company official to say, hey, can you confirm this date? Because I see pretty regularly, the company official who fills this out just simply writes, when did the employee work for the company? Maybe it was September of 1980. Yes, they're still employed. But then the question is, was the applicant covered in the employee health plan? Yes. When did it start? January 1 of 2026. I see that all the time because maybe they have a new plan that began in 26, and they're only looking at, what is this plan's effective date? And hey, it started in January of 26. But the real question is, when did the employee begin coverage? And for how long have they had it? So normally that is the whole length of work while they're working there. So we just make sure that these dates are correct, that it shows that the employee had insurance from 65 and beyond. If the employee worked at multiple employers, then they're going to need multiple L564s. So if they worked at say one company from 65 to 70 and another company from 75 to 80, or whatever the case is, then they're going to just need the L564 or proof of employer coverage from each of those jobs after the age of 65. Um, but you take these two forms, the L564 and the 40B, and you can fax that to Social Security. So what happens is if we just go back to the Social Security's main page, ssa.gov, scroll down to um, find an office, and you just type in your zip code. This changed a couple of months ago. It used to just give one office. Now it gives multiple offices. But the first one it gives you is technically that member's Social Security office. So, for example, I put in my zip code, it pulls up the downtown Birmingham office. I click office information, and now there's a fax number. This is the local fax number, 787-1781, that we can take those two forms now, put a cover sheet with it, and fax it to the local Birmingham office. So that is really helpful. If you put in any of the Social Security offices here, let's just say Trustful was yours, and we wanted to fax it, their fax number right here, 833-950-3465. So obviously has their address. This number here, the 1-800-772-1213, that is the main Social Security line. That is not the Trustful Social Security office or the downtown Birmingham office. The 1213 phone number is the national number, which when you call that number, it takes forever for somebody to answer. Um, some of the offices have a different number there. So just out of curiosity, let's click on Jasper and see what that number is. Yeah, see, and for Jasper, it's their local number. So it's not that 1213 number. This is if somebody needed to call the Jasper Social Security office and dial this number, that is the number that takes you directly to the Jasper office. So that's one of the things I like about faxing the applications in is historically, if we have the local Social Security office's phone number, we can call them and say, hey, we sent you a fax on this date. Is it possible to pull that application and maybe get it processed for us? If you send it online, like we were doing earlier, there really is no way of doing that. There's nobody who you can maybe speed up that process, and it typically takes about a month or so to get this rolling. So that's something that you always want to keep in mind. So, two main forms: the CMS 40B, that's the request for Medicare Part B, and then the CMS L564, the proof of employer coverage. You need those two forms, and we fax those to Social Security. When somebody is coming off of their group insurance, people always ask us about timing. From a time perspective, um, you can do it last minute, but that is not ideal. In a perfect world, somebody would bring this to us maybe 2 months prior to them turning 65 so we can help them make sure the forms are correct and then get those in the hands of Social Security as soon as possible. It takes about a month for Social Security to process everything. Um, sometimes it could be Sometimes it could be longer. Sometimes it could be shorter, but I always err on the side of caution, assuming that it's going to take longer than a month. So if we can get it in, into Social Security's hands 2 months prior, it's probably going to lower my anxiety and probably lower your clients as well. So, two forms you need: the 40B, the L564. If you do it online, you don't need either of those forms exactly because you're filling those out and then you're attaching proof of insurance. And you don't necessarily need to get the company to fill out anything. That's one of the things, like when somebody comes to me and they say, I want to fill out these forms, but I don't want my employer to know, then we just do it online because the employer will never know if you did it online. But if you do it with the physical PDF, the 40B and the L564, we do send that to HR, or they need to send it to their HR to have them completed. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you guys have a great rest of the month, and we will talk soon.